Hello, this is Murray Carter from Carter Cutlery again with you for Q&A. This is going to be part 3. Okay, how do you recommend tying the 550 cord on your neck knives? So some enterprising individuals have gotten a longer than normal piece of paracord and tied kind of like slip knots on either end. And the idea is that they can pull those knots kind of away from each other and tighten up and pull the knife up closer to the throat, or bring those two knots that slide on the rope on each other, and then they can lower the neck knife, which makes it easier to get on and off. Now, in theory, that's a pretty good idea. Personally, I don't recommend it because one of the greatest advantages of a neck knife is muscle memory, of being able to access it using muscle memory, and being able to access it by either hand, whether it's in your shirt or outside your shirt. And the idea with muscle memory is that you do it the same way every time. And if you've got an adjustable cord, the knife could hang at different lengths every time, and you may end up grabbing at different places and not grabbing the handle like you would instinctively if it was always at the same height. So if you want an adjustable cord, fine for you, but I'm just explaining why we neither supply an adjustable cord nor do I wear one adjustable myself. Okay, I'm interested in your grinding technique. Why do you sometimes rock your hands back and forth on the rotating water stone when you're grinding? Okay, simply put, the grinding stone is round. It's about 1 yard in diameter. And if I put a piece of metal, namely a blade, and hold it tight against that stone and kind of keep my hand really solid and immobile, then the round stone is going to grind a correspondingly hollow grind in the blade. On some blades, especially on all of my outdoor knives, which I'm going to flat grind before I deliver them to the customer, I want the grind to be a little flatter, so I'll actually do a little bit of rocking back and forth towards the final stages of the grinding, and that will remove more material towards the edge and up here towards the back of the grind, making it a little bit flatter. On my kitchen knives, which I actually want to be a convex grind, I'll put more dramatic rocking in my wrist as I'm grinding those kitchen knives and give them the convex geometry that I want. So it isn't because I'm getting old and have Alzheimer's, although that might not be too far off. But it's deliberate, and it's from hollow grind, flat grind, convex grind. Would you ever consider putting some thumb jimping on the spine of a neck knife or an FS1 knife? So jimping is when you take a file or a hacksaw and you cut shallow grooves in succession in areas where you want there to be more friction, like where your thumb might be on the spine of the blade, or I guess you could put them here in the choil or where your fingers go. The jimping is a fine feature for stainless steel knives. It does increase friction, although it could be too much friction and actually give you blisters in use. You can't do it with carbon steel or a laminated blade that's got a carbon steel core, because you're just inviting rust to form inside those hollows, which would be very difficult to maintain. Remember that the highest criteria, the most important criteria for high performance cutlery is ease of maintenance, and if you got little areas where it's real easy for rust to form, then that's no longer ease of maintenance. Also, if your handle is well designed from the get-go, from the drawing board, then you don't need jimping in order to have an absolute 100% secure grip in your hand. I've used our knives in wet and rain, and to butcher animals where you got fat and blood and grease all over your hands. I've used them when I've been tired and stressed out. I use them in poor lighting and so on. And if your handle is well designed, you don't need jimping. So I've seen you cold work blades, or I've seen you cold forge blades. I've also read opinions that state that that isn't beneficial, that it can be detrimental due to microfractures. What's going on there? Well, the Japanese have been cold forging blades for centuries, and no one denies that the best Japanese blades are the best blades in the world when it comes to cutting performance. And so even though metallurgically it can be argued that when you heat a blade to its critical temperature prior to quenching the blade and heat treating it, that any benefits of work hardening from cold forging are undone and therefore meaningless. The fact of the matter is that side-by-side blades in Japan made that are cold forged and the ones that aren't cold forged, the cold forged blades outperform, outcut, are easier to sharpen, have longer lasting edges than the non-cold forged blades. So there's something there that maybe science or metallurgy or technology can't quite prove, and yet we have empirical evidence that it is better on the Japanese laminated blades, and especially the purity of the white steels and the cleanliness of the blue steels. They really lend themselves over to proper cold forging. You can over cold forge, and it can make cracks. So the skill of the bladesmith is to be so intimately familiar with your steel and the way it's laminated and the nature of the steel it's laminated to know just how much cold forging you can get away with, because we really want to bring it right up to the threshold but not go past it. Okay, where do you currently source your steel? So our steel is custom ordered from Japan. There's 2 or 3 different sources that I use, and I've established relationships with these steel companies that specialize in laminating steel, and I've developed those relationships over 26 years. It helps that I speak the language fluently, and that they're proud of what I'm doing with their steel. They're proud of the results that I get with their steel, and they feel I represent it well. I don't think that in North America you can get laminated steel anywhere else. You certainly can't get the laminated steel that I use because I custom order it. The good news is I do sell limited quantities of steel to graduates of my classes. That ensures that they will also continue to represent the steel well, because they know the tried and true traditional techniques that will pull the maximum metallurgical potential out of the steel. Okay, another fellow wrote in and wanted to know about blade stiffness. And he found it interesting that some thinner blades were actually stiffer than thicker blades, even though they were both laminated. Well, it depends on 2 things. It depends on the forging process and the heat treatment, because a blade that is perfectly heat treated of average carbon content will be stiffer than either a thicker blade that isn't perfectly heat treated, or it can also be stiffer than a blade that's thicker but with less carbon content and therefore less tensile strength. The important thing to know is that blades are typically designed only to be strong in 2 dimensions. They're designed to be strong from tip to the back of the blade in this motion, in a forward piercing motion, and blades are designed to be strong from the spine down towards the primary cutting edge in this motion. Blades were not designed typically to be strong in this lateral motion, because a blade is designed to cut, and it's not designed to pry. That being said, blades are used as tools, and a little bit of prying does go on. For example, everyone's guilty of cutting a piece of cheese off of a block of cheese and then prying it off. So you need enough strength in the blade to withstand repeated use, but you don't want any more weight or thickness in the blade than is absolutely necessary for what that tool was designed for. Otherwise, you pay a big penalty in both weight and carrying the knife around, and in penalty in thickness, because thicker blades never cut through things as easily as thinner blades do. There's just simply more resistance there. So you want to have as stiff as a blade as you can. You also want to have as thin as a blade as you can. So you're looking for that balance between stiffness and the optimum thinness, we'll say. And don't forget that the higher carbon steel that you use on the outside of your blade, the stiffer the blade will be, but now you pay a penalty when you're sharpening your secondary edge. Abrasion on that secondary edge is going to be a lot more resistant than if it's a softer steel. So you have to, ease of stiffness, thinness, ease of maintenance, ease of sharpening. You have to keep all those things in perspective and keep them in balance. Okay, so until next week, this is Murray Carter saying thank you for watching our Part 3 Q&A. Stay sharp.